what exactly is virtual reality?
It's simply a tool of storytelling. But so you'll hear a lot about extended reality, but I'll speak for two technologies so that we can see the difference between them. So virtual reality is, in a nutshell, a computer-generated world that transports you, that gives you the illusion that you are in another reality, another physical reality.
It teleports you.
Yes. Without you necessarily being there.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace and welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Driving Eco-Sustainability, My Perspective. And once again, we talk about everything climate solutions, climate stories, environment sustainability, and what is that people are doing to contribute to ending the current climate change crisis. And today, I'm pleased to be joined by a lady. Her name is Lorna, and she's into climate storytelling. She's going to share more about herself. She is the founder of Keepers XR, an organization that advances climate stories through virtual reality. Welcome.
Thank you, Grace. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Lorna, tell us more about yourself. Keepers XR. I know you just had a project that has been running and premiered some time back called Keepers of the Forest, that is telling the story of the Batwa community that is based in southwestern Uganda. So tell us more about yourself. Basically, personally, that's what I know. But you can tell our viewers out there, who is Lorna and how do you come to be part of this space, and why is this personal to you, and how you come to have such a passion?
Grace, I think you've captured it really beautifully. So
yes.
I'll try to do justice and build on what you've said. Yes, so I'm Lorna Okeng, a team. I'm very many things, but I think to summarize my buffet of work, I am a creative technologist and a strategic foresight practitioner. So a lot of my work largely sits at the intersection of art, tech, and culture, and now futures as a kind of mental model. As you perfectly mentioned, yes, I'm the co-founder, alongside my dear partner Emma, of Keepers Studio. We are an immersive technology company that is really trying to push the boundaries of creative storytelling, tinkering on indigenous knowledge systems, and also how, Africa then centers itself at the forefront of shaping these technologies that are currently being built. Yes, and also the co-director and co-producers of Uganda's very first virtual reality film, which is Keepers of the Forest that you've described. And the story is really a love letter to the Batwa, but also a love letter to African, what we call a celebration of our intangible heritage and our histories and our legacies and our philosophies, and trying to capture it in a format that is palatable and that is, first of all, beautiful to experience, but also transports us to immerse ourselves in what, it's very difficult to articulate or in a book or in a traditional film. And that's what maybe virtual reality allows us to do. But I'll go back to why this story was very important to tell. I think we all know right now there's this global climate crisis that's happening. And a lot of it largely emerged post-COVID. It's been happening, but I think the sense of urgency has come really to the top beyond academic circles post-COVID. So COVID just was a reset for all of us to begin to think how prepared we are for the future of humanity. A lot of us were kind of not prepared. And so the world went back to tables such as this and really try and discuss how are we strategically protecting the future of humanity. And the climate crisis is one of the top topics in discussion. But again, you'll see a lot of these conversations happen at COP 28, 29. This year is 30 in Brazil, I think. And for a lot of us, the concept is still too far away. To everybody else, it's still too far away. But again, there's conversation about carbon credits. That's where you see a lot of governments involved. A lot of politicians are actively invested in the space development agencies, but also a lot of academia and research. So there is, carbon financing, and that's where Africa then, gets a seat at the table and saying, this is the opportunity that we see. But reality-wise, I think, there's a clear documentation that I think Africa holds about 23% of the carbon sinks.
Yes.
And that's from the Virunga Forest, the Congo Basin region. And in terms of the repercussions, Africa contributes, I think, less than 2% to this global climate crisis.
Yes.
But when it comes to the repercussions, third world countries, including us, are going to be the most hardly hit. Like what was speaking earlier, Uganda, over 90% depend on subsistence farming, right? Like we depend on the rain. But then because of this climate change, we're beginning to see some shifts in that. So it's affecting pretty much every one of us, but we don't necessarily have the language to fully understand what's happening, right? So climate change still remains this kind of like very far-fetched concept, but in terms of practicality of how it's affecting us, it's affecting pretty much every one of us, and we will be the most affected. I'm also going to echo, I think, the king of Toro Oyo, one of those films that they created a few years ago, was really trying to bring to life how the Renzori, what are they called? The ice. The glaciers are really significantly melting. Yes. And it's Renzori that feeds these rivers, that feeds all of these other spaces. So that means the impact is here, but we may not see, and we may not necessarily fully understand it in the way that we could understand it to fully get a seat at the table. But in all this madness that's happening, there's also something fascinating that's already happening as this reality is happening. People are falling back to how they know how to do things. Yes. So we can call that indigenous knowledge or ancestral knowledge, but there are certain practices. I call them technologies. I call them vernacular technologies that we've always had, but maybe do not necessarily get the platforming as kind of Western technologies. Yes. And in this engagement, the Batwa became a very instrumental. I really think they are an instrumental case study. Their ideologies, their philosophies, the way they looked at human nature and nature human and nature art, how they looked at we are a collective, they have that philosophy. And there's that, I know that we talk about Ubuntu, I am because you are, and usually talks about the humanistic relationship. But for the Batwa, I can summarize it that for them, they would say Ubuntu in the context of I am because of the plant is, or the plant is because I am. Yes. It was not just grace to Lorna. Yes, it was, Lorna to earth, to the sky, and it was us as the collective.
My immortal relationship with my environment and my nature.
Exactly. Yes. So for me, that blew my mind, and I felt that that's a story that needed to be captured. That there is a place for ancestral intelligence in shaping the way we innovate towards fixing this global crisis. So for us right now, we felt that we had to tell this story in a new way, but also use it as an advocacy tool to introduce new philosophies that maybe are not necessarily alternative. Actually, they are alternative ideologies that should be included as the world tries to figure out how we're going to crack this code. So that's kind of where it all came from. As the keepers of the forest, they have stayed in the Renzori, the Mugahinga for centuries. They had a very interesting relationship with the gorillas. And so for us, as we try and balance Western conservation or Western wildlife conservation, I think there's a central place for us to return to how things were and how we can learn from the people who came before us to shape how we then approach the world
Yes.
forward. So in a nutshell, I hope I have done justice to your question.
Yes,
but that
yes,
is really
you have.
a brief
Yes.
about why this all happened, a
Yes.
bit of my background as well, and why this is an important time
Yes.
to tell this story. Yeah.
Yes. Now you have touched a subject that I am quite personal and passionate about, and that is climate storytelling. And you have also mentioned something else that is very important, that our biggest struggle has been that the information is out there, climate change information is out there, but it's more scientific than relatable.
Yeah.
So ordinary people have a hard time to comprehend, understand this information. And it's seeming like now the climate change discussion is a bit still more elitist, still more boardroom-like, and we are having a hard time making the common person out there understand what climate change is, what role they play in it, and what role they can play in reducing it and fighting it. Yeah. But you've also mentioned something else that has also been recognized, really, that indigenous knowledge is really the way to go, especially if we want to conserve our nature in the fight against climate change, because these indigenous communities, like the Batwa, are the custodians of majority of the world's biodiversity. Now, virtual reality as a catalyst to climate storytelling, it's something quite new, but I think I will appreciate the fact that for it creates a more tangible source of climate change information in a way that is more attention grabbing and permanent information that can be kept for generations, which is something we've struggled with, preserving indigenous knowledge. So I wanted to know, what exactly is virtual reality? For someone out there, what is virtual reality?
Yes, spot on. Yeah. So virtual reality is, again, the technology, but the easiest way I really say it's simply a tool of storytelling. But so you'll hear a lot about extended reality, but I'll speak for two technologies so that we can see the difference between them. So virtual reality is, in a nutshell, a computer-generated world that transports you, that gives you the illusion that you are in another reality, another physical reality, without you necessarily being there. So right now, because the technologies are still being developed, I mean, they've been in the pipeline for a couple of years, but now they are, I think, actively coming to the front line. You need a gadget. You need a kind of a headset. So that headset becomes your new medium, and then it completely cuts you off this reality we are living in, which is your physical, and then gives you the illusion that this other alternative, what we're calling the digital world that you are now in, is your new reality. So as you said, it teleports you, it transports you. And in fact, it's why it becomes really beautiful is it's a show, don't tell. Like, it's easy for me to tell you about a story in the Bible versus show you, and I think virtual reality gives us that illusion that we are living in an alternative reality.
It immerses you into a different universe,
absolutely.
Really. Yes.
The language is perfect. Immerse and interact.
Yes.
So you immerse one, and then you can also interact with that other world. And that's, I think, the beauty about it. In a nutshell, that's how I would simply describe virtual reality.
Yes. Yeah. Now, what is the value proposition of virtual reality storytelling as opposed to ordinary storytelling? What makes it different and what makes it unique as opposed to ordinary storytelling? Unique, as in you meet someone and you really want to convince them. Because personally, when I came for Keepers of the Forest, it was the very first time I was also having a virtual reality experience. Wow. But I've seen people with those headsets. Yes, but I think I've seen them around gaming setting. Yes. So you're meeting someone out there. What is that value add proposition you would pitch to them to tell them that virtual reality is actually the way to go and is actually value add and better? It's actually the future of storytelling.
Yeah, I like what you said. I love that what you picked out of your experience was immersive. It
Yes.
immersed you into this alternative world that you would never possibly imagine being there. And I think for me, that is the beauty of this particular tool. It's potential to collapse worlds. Yeah, I will use that, collapsing worlds, that wherever you are, like you can be in Singapore right now, or you can be in Mars, or you can be on the moon, or you can be in Buindi taking a safari, or strolling a road in Paris. That is what virtual reality is. And the easiest way I always try to connect dots is when we were doing geography in high school or primary school, we had the atlas.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just like this strange lines and and there's a bit of color here and here, and then in those there were these little clips of photographs, and that's what we were studying, the wine lines, the Stellenbosch, and then I am in Lira, or I am in Nakasura Primary School, but then I'm traveling the world using an atlas, right? And that gave us the imagination of that there's this global place that I can now feel that I am part of it. And that was the most rudimentary way I can describe a virtual reality. So geography gave us virtual trips. Yeah, that's what it was doing. Gave us virtual trips, but not really teleporting us. So now imagine an atlas now saying, I am enhancing the atlas experience and saying, while I am just showing you, while I'm telling you, now let me show you. And that's really what VR, really virtual reality does. It's a kind of show, don't tell, that you will see it and you'll experience it for yourself. While maybe traditional filmmaking is you're being told.
Yes.
You're cut off. Yeah, you sit back and there's
someone shares.
And it's a script. And even here it's a script, but there's no connection that you necessarily have to that piece. It's a film. We are watching it and we are done. We are good. With immersive, and I think that's why for those who are doing human psychology, it's fascinating because somebody's seated like we're here, but then you're being put on a roller coaster and somebody's freaking out because now they are not just watching, they are in them. Their mind is, I am in a roller coaster. They are screaming.
I know.
So that's the thing about the experience versus the watching. You can watch a roller coaster and quite frankly, you're detached, but now you are in it. And going back to storytelling and why this became very critical, especially for times like this in an information overload era, there's too much information. But the human psychology, we are only shaped by three things: what we see, what we read, and what we hear. Yeah. And that's why the media becomes the most potent instrument in shaping culture, shaping opinion. It has to be the media. And anyone who is at the forefront of storytelling shapes perception and therefore shapes how cultures then begin to be formed. And so this new medium, for me, why I find it so powerful is because it's emotive. It unlocks that emotional side of you that maybe a documentary will never do. And we've seen so many documentaries telling you guys the world, we're just like, great, fine. You watch it and there's no connection. But this VR allows, because it's multisensory, it unlocks multiple senses in you, how you're feeling, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and therefore the emotional connection that you will have to the experience will be far greater to if you maybe watched a traditional documentary. So I think for me that becomes why it becomes incredibly powerful. But I also say that I have this philosopher that I really love. It's called Alain de Botton. And he says that the difference between the line of thinking that you had framed earlier around the topic is still very academic, very abstract. It's still very complex. It's still complicated. It's literature, it's journals, it's articles, and everybody else is like, I don't know what's going on there. And he says something about the difference between a sermon and a lecture. And he says the difference why, if you look at lectures, lectures try to tell you. Yeah, so you go and study a course and the lecturer is telling you this is what it is, right? And then you do an exam. Please, I expect you to understand this because I've told you. And then students don't still get what the guy is saying. But then when you go, and religion has done a fantastic job really understanding storytelling. And that's why for them cathedrals were like museums, yeah? Because they knew that there was a story they had to tell, that reading the Bible was just not enough. You had to escort it with a choir. You had to escort it with like this kind of giant, graphics and artistry, because the human mind, you had to create a sense of opulence, like heavenly. That's why Catholic cathedrals had that kind of level of opulence. Yes, we are talking about reading the Bible, but they had to escort it with the experience, and they had to virtually give you a piece of heaven. That's why we walk into cathedrals. Then when you walk out, you're back to reality. But once you're in there, you have a feeling
you're
that
fully within.
This is a godly place. You even begin to feel it. And you can really see it as well when you look at Mecca and you look at almost all religious, they understood the central power, that you don't just tell people. People have to be reminded and shown and escorted and experienced. And Elaine Botton concludes and says, when you look at evangelicals, when you see Benny Hinn, look at the thousands of people going for Benny Hinn.
I know.
Why are we not seeing that traffic going to why are we not seeing, the universities having crusades on climate change where millions of people show up? It really is the experience. Because what they are getting there is an experience. And this is truly what virtual reality tells. The difference between a lecture and a sermon is experiential. A lecture is a documentary we are telling you. But now VR allows us to then unpack this complex topic in a way that can connect with everybody else, and everyone would say, oh, that's what it means. Now I care because I've experienced it from a more experiential and potent, emotive place. So that truly is the power of VR as a storytelling tool.
Yeah. Yes, I think for me, what was quite a good experience back when I had the opportunity of viewing keepers of the forest. There was this point where I was taken on a safari, and I was literally seeing elephants bypassing me, and I was actually jumping a step back. I'm worried that they are going to knock me. Yes, so I think, yes, you are right. Virtual reality essentially fully immerses you into this wholly different world, and it really taps in on the emotions of a person, that you are really moved psychologically by the experience, by the feeling you get. So I wanted to understand, do you think it really contributes to people understanding the urgency? Does this feed into people understanding the urgency around climate change and also undertaking behavioral change that can contribute to bettering our environment?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of the tech around VR is cognitive and has to do with the human psychology. But going back to your question, I think for me, it is people only find something important if they care about it. So how do you make people care about a particular thing? Bring it home. Make it something that is familiar enough for them to care, right? And I don't want to be too dark, but it's, for example, there is war, okay, not really, the crisis in Afghanistan. There is what's happening in Palestine, in Gaza right now. Yes, we can see the news.
Yes.
But for you to truly care to the point that I'm like, guys, because it's still too far away from you. It's too detached from you, right? Going back to your elephant experience in the safari. I mean, when you talk about conservation and all of these other things, they're like, yeah, I've not seen an elephant. I don't know where it is. I've never experienced it. How am I supposed to care? But because you have been part of your safari, you're in the space, you matter now because you've interacted with the gorilla or you've interacted with an elephant. So the next time they say they are, slaughtering elephants or poaching elephants, you have some kind of connection. So VR, I think at the end of the day, why this tool is instrumental versus traditional media is that point of once you can connect to the emotions of people and get people to care, then they can pay attention to what it is that you're trying to talk about, right? And that's really, I think, what this tool allows us to do is show people, don't tell people to care, show people what to care about. And then they feel it, and then they will care. And then suddenly everybody's an advocate of, okay, I have seen the repercussions of this thing. And they're telling you, okay, it means if you throw plastic bottles here, this is what it will mean. Yes. And then you're like, oh, because I am now connected to this random experience, then now it begins to connect to me. Because at the end of the day, you have to bring it home. People have to be able to care enough for them to shift, to act. So that we have, I think that's the struggle that every stakeholder is at. Is yes, you're telling people, please care.
Yes.
But what are they caring for? Show them, don't tell them. And I think that's really what VR, it's a show, don't tell. Experience it. And once it connects, once somebody begins to care, then they are the advocates. Then we'll have 1 million advocates, champions of climate conservation, as opposed to, top down, which is one person trying to convince all of us to care, but the rest of us don't really try and connect to their vision. So for me, as you said quite beautifully, it is how do we get people to care? And I think people can only care if it's familiar enough, if it's relatable enough, if it's close enough for them to care. And VR forces you to be close enough.
Yes.
Because you're teleported
yes.
to Buin the Impenetrable, and you're kind of teleported to Chidepo National Park, even if you haven't. And now suddenly you feel like, this place matters because it's close to you and it's familiar enough for you to care. And that too, for us, as I said,
yes.
it collapses
yes,
worlds.
Yes, yes.
We just need to collapse worlds enough and bring the distance between that and bring it home. And it's only through familiarity that people care.
Yes,
if it's close enough to home. And I think VR allows us to do that.
Yes. Now, one of the key stakeholders and participants in virtual reality storytelling are these indigenous communities that are at the forefront of these actions, conserving indigenous knowledge, sharing their day-to-day lives, sharing their livelihoods, and definitely they are stakeholders. And they have actually been recognized in the international agreements like the Paris agreements that indigenous communities will and are currently playing a central role to averting climate change. And they should have a place on the table. They should be integrated in the climate change conversations, not only locally, but globally as well. So in the process of preparing the information that is going to form the experience of virtual reality, how does it help in ensuring that the voice of marginalized communities are heard and they are given a place at the table, basically?
Yeah, good point. And I think what you've articulated is really why this story again became really important. If you hear the story of the Batwa, we all know that in the 1990s,
yes,
they were evicted from the Bwindi and the Gahinga rainforest.
Yes, there's even a court case.
Yeah.
Yes, because they have been evicted and they became like people moving from one place to another. And their identity was literally, yet the forest is literally their identity.
Exactly, it's home. And it's also it's a learning for all of us, especially as we try to kind of decolonize and rethink the remains of what the Western world has given us. The idea that so the idea was really that typical Western wildlife conservation was, kind of gazette a particular place, make it exclusive for animals and then for wildlife, and then keep humans in a particular space. Also respectfully, because humans were, with urbanization, a lot of forests are going down, with towns coming up. So it was a natural way to try and create some reservoirs so that wildlife could still be protected, but without necessarily human-animal conflict.
Yes.
So that's how they created that. The challenge, though, with the Batwa is that the Batwa these forests were home. And they've been there for centuries. But now this policy of evictions and forceful, it was a forceful eviction, but also a forceful assimilation into what we call civilized life. And I don't like that word because who defines what civilization is? So they were forced to assimilate to the neighboring cultures and tribes, things like go to school, adopt modern ways of commercial, like agriculture, farming, and all of those kinds of things. But that was not them, right? So there has been a dramatic difficulty in adjusting, and that's why when they are endangered, their population has significantly dropped. Right now, I think it's tallied at around 67,000, which is really, really low. What that also means is languages could go, but also this entire asset class and this entire indigenous group that held almost decolonized knowledge systems, we could lose that. We could lose that if not handled very carefully. But I think what has also happened, the government of Uganda quickly recognized and had to do a rapid balance because there's a huge push for gorilla conservation. They have kind of incorporated the Batwa in, they're now like tour guides as well.
Yes.
There is an institute that's interrogating and researching, what is it called? Herbal, indigenous, natural medicines with the knowledge of the Batwa in collaboration, because they knew the forest, they had lived in it, they knew all these plants, they had this encyclopedia of knowledge that was not necessarily documented in the formats that we know, books and stuff, but it is there. And it's what we call intangible. And I think that's the knowledge that I'm most invested in.
Yes.
So, but going back again, for us, this was not our story to tell. We were just technologists saying that there is an important, urgent story that needs to be told, but it will be told by the owners of the story. And that's why we say they are the keepers of the forest, but they are the keepers of the knowledge as well. And we wanted to extend agency entirely to them, that they told the story as they would. The actors were entirely them.
You tell the story from their authentic
perspective. Yes, their perspective, and also the actors are them, the Batwa themselves, and they're just telling us. At first, we went to tell this, okay, there is this experience, but we were just amazed by, I keep saying, this encyclopedia of knowledge that has to be captured and has to be brought to the table. But again, it's easy for us to, I think that's what advocates have been trying to do for a very long time. There is indigenous knowledge groups, then you go to COP and you say, or you go to the UN Summit of the Future and you're trying to say, guys, you need to include. So we said, we are not telling anymore. We are going to show, don't tell.
Yes.
Right? And therefore, why we felt this story had to be told in the way that it needed to be told, using a tool that can show, don't tell, then we will bridge the gap between, advocate, because there are lots of people advocating. We need to be inclusive. We need to have divergent voices. We need to bring divergent voices to the table. And yes, maybe the Batwa, New York will not come to the Batwa.
Yes.
We will take the Batwa to New York.
Yes.
And that's what VR has allowed us to do, that this experience collapses this world, and then we are using it as an advocacy tool to show and don't tell, and saying that there is a knowledge system that needs to be central to these conversations that are happening, and these are the keepers of that knowledge. Therefore, you need to talk to them. But even if you don't talk here, this is what they are telling you. So yeah, in a nutshell, for us, it was respecting and stewardship for the keepers. And I use the word keepers, not jokingly.
Yes.
We really truly mean the owners of the knowledge need to be respected, because for a very long time, Africa has been extracted from. just come and extract.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
what's happening in DRX, we extract.
Yes.
And then we build our lithium batteries, right? We come and we extract gold and diamonds and we create beautiful rings and we fund capitalism.
Yes.
But no restitution is going back to who? The sources of these resources. No credit is going back to the owners of this. So we have seen that. So we didn't want to recolonize and say, hey, we are taking some people's knowledge and we are patenting it. No. We're saying these are the owners of the knowledge. They have always had the knowledge. And yes, other people may get Nobel Prizes as standalones for doing some stuff, but these are the legacy owners. They have always had this knowledge.
Yes,
and up to today, they are still keepers over that forest.
Yes. Now you've mentioned something very important that, yes, most cases the idea is the knowledge is taken and utilized, but the original owners of the knowledge are usually not credited, not recognized. And so there is this disjuncture between the source of the indigenous knowledge and then the people who are using it, and it's not benefiting or crediting the sources. And I think the biggest issue has always also, and this has created tension within these communities. So when people go in these communities, there is a certain mistrust. And when it is merged with technology, the mistrust even doubles. Someone feels like, why are you bringing this here? Why do you need to do this? Is it safe? Why? So there is a certain mistrust that comes with this. So I just wanted to find out from your practical experience, how was it, how did you get to convince and the journey of working with the Batwa people? Because virtual reality, of course, comes with use of technology. And it was going to tell a story from the source using the voices at the source. So how hard was it merging the use of technology and within the local community of the Batwa?
That's quite a powerful question, especially when it comes to these new technologies. I think for me initially, and I have been surprised quite nicely throughout my experience, is these tools are simply tools. The story is still the foundational part of it. And I think a lot of times we front the technology and forget about what the technology is carrying. And for me, what has blown my mind is, as we talk about this digital divide, I was also a bit worried that, okay, maybe people will reject this thing. It's strange, it's weird. But I think going back to why this tool, I am such a believer in the gift of agency versus assimilation. So what, and I'm trying to come to the answer, but I'll try to give you when we talk a lot about inclusion, you're seeing that language a lot. Everybody's talking about inclusion. But what really is inclusion is people are telling you, there's a table. I'm going to invite you to the seat at the table, but when you come to the table, behave like us. Yeah? Yes. So you see that a lot. Yes. Yeah. Whether it's women, we are women empowered, there's women empowerment. But when you reach here, can you begin to behave like us? You
have to conform,
right, to the rules of the table.
You are brought to the space for diversity, but then that diversity is not required. You have to conform.
Come and follow the rules of the table, right? So they'll tell you women empowerment, but when you sit at the seat of the table, they'll tell you, no, be a boss lady, be tough, so dress up like don't bring your extreme femininity here and your softness and stuff. This is a table for bosses. You need to boss up. That's a lot you see about inclusion. Even when the West is saying, oh, Africa, we want you at the seat of the table. No. You come, but when you sit at this table, these are now the rules of the table and you need to operate to them. Now, I had to throw away the idea of inclusion. And assimilation is saying, you have something special, Grace. I'm going to give you all the tools that you need. I'm going to give them to you, and you will use them the way you want to use them. That to me is what agency is. And for us, that's going into this experience. It was saying, we are just storytellers. The story is not ours. The technology is never ours. It just is a medium. But we want to bring to light this important thing. And we are asking, so we had to co-curate this with the Batwa themselves. The great thing is they are hyper organized. There's a lot, they have association, they have a whole kind of like very good community. And also UWA has done excellently, really trying to work with them in their conservation efforts. So it was, what story do you like? What would you want to tell? What would you want the world to know? Not, we want the world to know this, therefore do, yeah, it's, what do you want? So our narrative was guided by them. And also being respectful that certain knowledge is sacred. Not all knowledge has to be shared. So they had the liberty to choose what they were comfortable to share, and what had to be, retained as sacred, sacred knowledge. So again, for us, it was just, they have the full agency. They will decide the path of the storyline, the path of what they want to show. And we will capture that, right? Giving full credit to the institution and making sure that even at the premiere, they were at the premiere.
Yes, I actually
they had the core. Yes, the core actors. So for me, it's going back to the question that you said about trust. It's because the world has become so extractive, right? But Africa was never that way. African cultures were never designed that way, because knowledge was collective. It was for the benefit of all of us. And therefore, the reason why we see a bit of tension is because people are overwhelmed by capitalism.
Culture appropriation is a big problem. Yes.
Exactly. And I think being able to build rapport and trust is intention. What is your intention? And I think they have lived long enough to be able to see and have natural intuition of who is here to take something and who is here to collaborate with us. And I think for us, it was giving them the space, giving them the agency, and really learning from them. I always say I come with always have an empty slate. The script had to be rewritten. We had a script, we threw it out of the window, had to be rewritten as this entire library began to unfold before our eyes. And it's really that beauty of agency, as opposed to, we are here trying to say it was never our story, but it was an important story that needed to be told by the original owners and who we are calling the true keepers of that knowledge system. And going back to why I'm such a big believer in respecting the collective as humanity, because once we see the collective vision, it's not about Lorna anymore, it's not about Grace anymore, it's about the future of humanity. And they live already like that. For them, there's this asset for the preservation of us collectively, and for them to honor us, to document that. We handle it with a lot of grace. Like, we handle that with a lot of grace and with a lot of humility, because I can tell you that the library of ancestral intelligence is something that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of. So going in and saying, these are the tools, these are the instruments, show us the way, and let the owners show you the way.
Yes.
Changes the dynamic, because the power is returned to them.
Yes.
So even the way they begin to engage is different.
They're a bit more open.
Exactly.
Really. Yes.
Versus if you go on like, hi guys, we're coming to save you, which is what you see a lot. People going to communities and you're trying to, like, we are trying to educate you. I was like, no. Then you'll see resistance. But give power to who the power belongs to, and you will see beautiful things emerge. And I think for us in our process, we're very respectful of that. And I always say our fundamental principle is agency. And once you give people agency, my God, what you will see come out of that will absolutely blow your mind. So for us, that's also one of the things that we found very, very useful. And it's a learning, and I'll always say it in research.
Yes.
Agency. Give power to the owners of the knowledge. just because you're a researcher doesn't in any way mean that you have superiority
Yes.
over the people you're researching about.
Yes.
That's being crazy, and
Yes.
that's just being absolutely, yeah. So that power dynamic, once you give people their power, beautiful things emerge, and
Yes,
that's what we saw.
You've actually mentioned something quite very important, that one of our biggest struggles when we are advancing the cause for fighting climate change, we tend to focus more on going in communities and we tell them, this is what's on ground. You must do ABCD. If you don't do ABCD, the end is near. Disaster is coming. Instead of making it a bit more, you walk in there and you actually tell people, yes, you've experienced this, they tell you, and then you're like, how have you handled it? What do you think? What do you think can be done better? So yes, now you have mentioned something very important. So I wanted to find out now, virtual reality heavily depends on technology.
Yeah.
Yes. So I wanted to know, what are the practical challenges of virtual reality experiences and use in communities that have limited access to technology? Because now you were telling a story of an indigenous community. And in most cases, indigenous communities are not really, actually, they shouldn't be forced to assimilate with what we call the civilized world. And they have their own identity, community, and they like to preserve it that way. So it usually comes with the challenges of a limited presence of technology and access to technology within these spaces. So what are the challenges of advancing virtual reality experiences in places that have limited access to technology?
Good, excellent question. That's really cool because, of course, I'll speak on the general industry and then I'll come specifically to that. So yeah, right now we're using kind of a prosthesis, which is a headset. You need it as a medium to experience, to get the experience, and it's global. It's global. It's everywhere. Right now, the technology is still very young. I really say the commercial side, it hasn't been more than 10 years since the Google Cardboard. We are seeing Meta, that is ex-Facebook, creating these Oculuses, but the prices are significantly reducing. It's still pricey, but it's significantly reducing. And I'm hoping that maybe in the next 10 years, we'll begin to see 10, 15, we'll begin to see the evolution like the mobile phone.
Yes.
Like in 1996, well, there were only specific people who could hold the Alcatel and the Ericsson, right? Because it was very expensive to have a mobile then. But thank God for the rapid digitalization, and we are beginning to see the phones are becoming cheaper and they're faster and they're better, right? So we are expecting to see that same trajectory over the next couple of years. Right now, I think we are just getting out of the pioneer phase of VR in terms of headsets. It's still very limiting, even for Africa, I can assure you. But also one of the things that we are trying to do as keepers as well, and the ecosystem here in Uganda is, what can we do alternatively beyond waiting for kind of like a 2 million headset to come here, is trying to hack our own hardware. Because hardware is really central in all of this, hack our own hardware. And right now I can tell you quite proudly that we are tinkering on trying to create Uganda's first virtual reality headset. And hopefully it can, significantly be cheaper, not just for Uganda, but for Africa. I think there's only one African company, Eden Labs, who are also tinkering with a headset. But Africa needs to take a central place now in building our own infrastructure, hardware inclusive, beyond now creating content, right? Because that's one of the layers. So that is hopefully why we also begin to see the processors are becoming cheaper, the assets are becoming cheaper. Access to China is now, the trade barriers are now a lot cheaper. So we are experimenting that kind of R&D. And also Uganda, I can tell you, we have excellent labs. Our engineering teams here in Uganda, whether it's MOOC or I think science and technology, our innovation Ministry of STI, is it Science and Technology and Innovation, our initiative are really heavily investing in trying to cultivate local solutions. So that's what we want to really plug in R&D, the research and development side of
Yes,
things.
yes.
So hopefully we'll begin to see that in the next 2-3 years. But on the global scale, the cost of these headsets is going to significantly reduce, and maybe people will be able to afford them the same way we have the mobile phones, right?
Yes.
But but adding to that, now coming back to where we are right now, it's incredibly limiting. Yeah. But what we also want to do is quickly adapt, try and adapt this experience into other formats that can easily be, can travel faster. YouTube allows VR. You can put a VR. It has, it's enabled for VR as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
there's YouTube VR, and you can use your phone. And there's some small Googles that you can use, just put it there, and you can also have that kind. They're like really cheaper solutions. And I think for us, that's really the pathway that we see coming up alive. But in the meantime, we're really using the next couple of years to do runs, what we call festival runs, which is visiting and having like a mobile screening where we actually go and screen these experiences as keepers to communities themselves. Take it to other cities and other towns, and that to us is as part of our distribution pipeline, is the festival runs. I'm trying to plug into some of the activities that's already happening. Ministry of Tourism had Museum Day in Chigezi. You plug into stuff like that because they're usually activations, and then you take this thing closer to the owner, to the owners and those who should be experiencing it. But I think over the next couple of years, I'm really, really optimistic, and I'm a very reckless optimist, but I really do believe that in the next 5, 6, 7 years, the VR is going to be as mainstream as mobile is now. Everybody has a mobile phone, at least everybody, even the dumb people do have it.
Yes.
And I think Africa's time is now. And I am really, really optimistic that we'll begin to see that kind of balance. But in terms of the technical fear, my experience with VR has blown my mind seeing how people interact with it. Because my fear was also that people would fear this thing. Okay, it's so foreign, it looks weird. I'm fearing to enter it. But you just say, guys, just show. See, just see this thing.
Yes.
And when someone wears it,
People are curious.
Yes, that's the word. The curiosity. Oh my God. For me, it's the imagination and curiosity that this thing has allowed us to see. We used to think that maybe young people will be the ones who would get it, they're tech savvy, but we have had it in the hands of women 60, 70, 80. Even those, the Batwa themselves experienced it, and they come back, everybody gets out of the headset and they're telling you, so you mean I can do this? So they're like, oh, so that was France. So I was in a national, so I can do. And for me, it's the curiosity, that spark that lights up the eyes of everybody and them saying that, oh, so this looks like a dream. And going back to the element of technology, I've also had to decolonize a lot during this process, because the more I found myself in these technologies, the more I found it the closest to African indigenous technologies.
Yes.
So we used to, whether we call it a choto, elders sat around a fire telling children stories and It was like experiential, it was immersive.
Yes.
You weren't just reading a book. It was that whole thing, then the dance and all of these other things. It was an experiential thing. VR is experiential. Our formats of storytelling were experiential. So it's pretty much the same. Now, when I asked a few people who were doing those headsets, I usually ask, how would you describe this thing in your local language? Now that you've experienced it, if you go back, how would you tell somebody? What blew my mind is over 50% of people say it was like a dream. You're there, you can sit, but you're not there.
Yes.
You can dream like it's a dream.
Someone is holding your hand and taking you on a journey.
You can see it.
Yes.
And you're like in it. But then when you wake up, you can't see it, right? So everybody's like, but it's like a dream, right? It teleported you into another world. It's like you're dreaming. And I was just like, oh my God, these technologies are not foreign. there are things that are already there. It's just packaged differently. Another person said, it's like a mirror. I said, what do you mean? They're like, you see a mirror, you can see yourself, but in reality, you cannot see yourself.
Yes.
But every day, you know, this is who Lorna looks like, but you've never seen yourself.
Yes, actually, yes.
But that's what a mirror does. It's a virtual world. I was like, I even had never looked at it that way. So for me, I was like, these technologies are everyday things. And once people begin to see them as everyday things, then it stops being a complex technology. Because now they say it's like a mirror. Another said it's like a dream. And I was like, that's actually what it was. It is a virtual world. And that is simply what it is.
Yes, but you see, like we say, technology in essence, technology is meant to be as relatable to our daily lives as possible. Yes. That is what good technology is all about. Yes, relatable to our daily lives. Now, Lorna, I do notice that you are quite passionate about virtual reality, and which is understandable. Yeah. Now, for me, I personally were able to see Keepers of the Forest, and I was quite, like you've shared, it was a dream come true. Someone holding an invisible hand, holding me, taking me on a journey never experienced before. Now I can say I have been to Buindi.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been to a safari. Yes. So it was really quite an experience. Yes. Now, if someone wants to see some of your work, where can they find it really?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So multiple formats. So right now we as I said, we are studio. We have our studio in Kulambiro. No, it's not Kulam. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I forget it's not Kulambiro. Chanja, yes. Komamboga.
Yes.
Komamboga. That's the place. So that's where the Keepers XR studio is. And I think right now we are open to anybody who'd like to, come and check it out. We are looking for that. But also we are actively looking for opportunities to showcase. So if you're in a school, like we're right now trying and make sure that going back to the curiosity thing, yes. Children, schools. So we're trying to get this thing into as many schools as possible. You know, when we were in primary school, they would be like film day.
Yes,
like they're pay 500 and come and watch this thing on Friday.
Yes.
We really want to make sure that this thing is not limited to just a studio and a few people. We want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. So yes, if you have a school, if you have a community, because they are mobile, it's like a mobile phone. I can just walk. I didn't carry it today. I should have, but carrying, it's a mobile thing. So if you have any engagement, we're really looking for multiple opportunities where we can showcase, just definitely reach out. I think the possibilities are endless, but we're on standby. We're available. If you have a festival, we're open to that. We're also building up our distribution and licensing pipeline.
Yes.
But I think for us right now, what we really want to do is get it into the hands of show it to us. I've used the word show it to as many people as possible.
Yes.
So if you have a platform, if you have an audience, a community, please do invite us. We'll be happy to come and screen and show. Yeah.
Yes. Something exciting you're working on right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So going back to that, there's, I always say there's never been a more exciting time to be African than now. Never been a more exciting time to be, on the continent and building for it as now. As I said, these tools are still new. AI is coming up, is another hot baby. And Africa for a very long time. Sorry, I speak about Africa a lot, not just Uganda, because for me, Africa is a country, but Africa can also be 54, 55, 56. We are very similar with different peculiarities, but I will always say that there's no place like this place, the continent, and we share a collective vision. The continent is going to be, it's the youngest, it's going to be the world. The world is going to be dependent on this continent. So I speak largely for that. But now I'm going back to your question on what are we doing? For the very first time, we are creating at the same time as the world. Africa's always played catch up. right?
Yes.
We missed, I don't know which revolution, the fast internet. We skipped all of that stuff.
We missed the internet.
We came with we just joined with the mobile phone.
We always just joined.
And we leapfrogged.
Yeah, we always just joined. But at least for AI, we are not doing
That's
badly.
exactly why. Even with VR, that's what I'm saying. The technologies are still very new. Everybody's still experimenting, tinkering. The rules haven't been set yet. Somebody likes to say the technologies haven't been colonized yet. So the reality is we have a seat at the table. And I'm very excited about not just consuming, but creating. So one of the things that we're doing as keepers is building what I would call a legion, honestly, of the next builders of the creator economy, the metaverse, Web 3.0, which is collapsing virtual augmented reality, collapsing AI, collapsing any of the disruptive techs into one. So yes, so we're currently running an AI and XR, which is extended virtual augmented reality residency, film salon. And what we're trying to do is push the boundaries of storytelling for the content, building future cities, African future cities, drawing from indigenous knowledge systems. Like how are we building the next mega cities, imagining them. But because we said, like Ali, I said, we are shaped by what we see, what we read, and what we hear. A lot of the technologies that we begin to see are what artists brought to life years ago. Right? So Star Wars, if you look at Star Wars, the idea that humans are multiplanetary, those were films.
Yes.
Now, the Elon Musks are now the technology is trying to catch up. And now we are like taking humans actually to space. I think that's what Jeff Bezos is doing.
It's not an imagination. It's now here.
So what I always say is technology draws all of its inspiration from art. And art deeply challenges tech. So art goes ahead of time, the artists go ahead of time, and engineering tries to catch up, right? So now more than ever, we are trying to document Africa's imaginations, right? Yes. What Disney did, Disney has told stories for over 100 years. It has set the tone of how the world looks at the world, simply because somebody created these fantasies, right? And that's the power of storytelling. But we need storytellers. So what we're really trying to do is create in real time, a really strong force of African futurists and African storytellers, but also creators, right? So the storytellers are the artists and the ones going to come up with this wild imagination, and then the engineers are going to try and bring that to life, right? So that's really what we're trying to do at Keepers. It's an incredible network that we have. It's not just Keepers alone, but there's a whole extended reality community that we have here in Uganda. If you've had a Wall E, that's also part of it. And in East Africa, there's a couple of friends that we have, the Fallow Hides. But I think the whole of Africa, I can say I have a pulse on what's going on the continent. And it's a group of very generous people who are really, really hungry and about really just making sure that Africa has a seat on this table. And anybody who would want to be part of that XR AI Futures tribe, we call it Art and Futures. Please, I can definitely share how you can join that community and be a part of it. Yeah.
Yes, Lorna, it's really been exciting. We could stay here the whole day. And another time I will invite you to talk more about AI, because now AI is how it pitches into and feeds into climate storytelling is also a subject for another day. And it's also quite a hot topic right now, globally, nationally, and also regionally. So another day we are going to really talk about that. And I'm going to share the information that she has promised if you're interested into joining this cause, and so that you join in and you learn, but you also contribute to bettering and also creating immersive stories for climate storytelling. Now, yes, 4 last questions, and they are going to be quizzes. Yes.
I love those.
Yes. Brief quizzes, just as we wrap up our discussions. Yes. Number 1, what is the one key advantage of using virtual reality for climate storytelling? A, it allows viewers to experience climate impacts firsthand in a virtual environment. B, it provides static images of climate-affected areas. C, it replaces the need for scientific data in climate discussions. And D, It limits the audience to only those with virtual reality headsets.
No, it has to be it's first-hand experience.
Yes, I agree. The next one is, how does virtual reality storytelling enhance empathy in climate narratives? A, by presenting abstract data in a more engaging way. B, by placing viewers in the shoes of those directly affected by climate change. C, by providing a platform for debate on climate policies. And D, by offering a distraction from real-world climate issues. It can't be D.
Oh my God. B, the placing viewers in the shoes.
Yes.
That is the, yeah.
Yes. That's correct. Number 3, what makes virtual reality a unique tool for climate storytelling compared to traditional media? A, it provides a passive viewing experience. B, it allows users to interact with and explore virtual environments. C, it focuses solely on textual information. And D, it eliminates the need for visual elements. It can't be C or D.
Definitely B.
Yes.
It has to be. Because the other answers are extremely. Go ahead.
Yes, B is the correct answer. Thank you. And lastly, how can virtual reality storytelling influence climate action? A, by overwhelming viewers with complex data. Really? By fostering a sense of urgency and personal responsibility through immersive experiences. C, by replacing the need for policy discussions. D, by limiting the audience to specific demographics.
Oh, B, definitely the urgency.
Yes.
Because of the emotive. And
I agree, you have really been big on urgency.
The urgency.
Yes, you have been big on urgency, and the fact that the entire essence of virtual reality is that it's immersive, it's emotive, and it's basically about show, don't tell. Yes, people have to be actively involved in the entire story as they experience it. So Lorna, it's really been good having you. And for those who don't know, as we were coming to the end of our discussion, she mentioned that she's a futurist, and I noticed that your Instagram page has your African futurist on Instagram, your handle. Yes, so she's really big on advancing the African vision and advancing virtual reality storytelling. So it's really been good having you.
Thank you so much, Grace. It has been an absolute delight. And thank you so much for creating platforms like this for us to share the world. The world is truly our oyster. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. So for all our viewers, look out for this episode. It's going to be live on our YouTube channel in the next few weeks. Like it, subscribe, and share those experiences. And I'm going to be sharing Lorna's contacts for all those who are interested in viewing Keepers of the Forest and all their projects around virtual reality, so that you can get immersed, you can get emoted, and you can get motivated to understand the urgency around climate action, the urgency around the need to preserve the identity of indigenous communities, to preserve their voices as the champions of fighting climate change, in the bid to show you and not to tell you what you must do in order to avert the current global climate change crisis. Look out and watch and subscribe and like this video and all our content on my YouTube channel. I've been Grace, driving eco-sustainability, my perspective. Till next time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do value the time that you put in to watch every episode. The entire essence I started this channel was to enhance the reach of the voices of those people who are contributing to the fight against climate change and those who are fighting to save our environment. If you like this video, click the subscribe button so that you can equally contribute to enhancing awareness towards climate action. Let's save our planet together.